Welcome to the Happy Nightmares podcast.
Hello out there, all you nutjob paranormal lovers. Patrick here, ready for another episode of the Happy Nightmares podcast to talk about all things spooky, ooky, and unexplainable. For any new listeners out there, we're happy to have you. Welcome. For any old listeners out there, guess what? You're also new. Unless this is way in the future and you are listening to the episodes in reverse order, in which case...
Stop it. Get some help.
I am extremely excited about today's episode for a couple of reasons. One reason is just the topics that we are going to be talking about. I stumbled upon an article, Top 10 Paranormal Myths. This doesn't mean like vampires are a myth. This is basically misconceptions of the world of the paranormal that people have. So we're going to go through them, talk about them, because that's what you do on a podcast. You talk about stuff. The second reason that I am excited is because of who wrote the article. The article was on the Travel Channel website and was written by a man named Aaron Sagers. Now, at this point, I am ashamed of myself because I had no idea who this person was. And I hang my head as a lover of the paranormal that this name did not jump off the page at me, but I did not recognize the name at all. So, me being a person who doesn't like to utilize someone else's material without permission because I plan on reading a few excerpts from the article, I looked up Aaron on Facebook without doing any research on who the guy was, shame on me, and I sent a Facebook message as if he was just some normal dude. Now, I'm going to jump ahead because after I got a response from him, which I will talk about momentarily, I went out and finally did some research, and holy crap. If you, listener, do not know who Aaron Sagers is, then you should be as ashamed of yourself as I am of myself. Just go to aaronsagers.com. AARONSAGERS.com. The career that this man has had in the entertainment industry with regards to the paranormal, not exclusively, but primarily, is astounding. I'm sorry, but I'm going to fanboy out here for just a moment, so bear with me and we'll get to the paranormal stuff soon enough. Aaron Sagers is currently a journalist with the Travel Channel's show Paranormal Caught on Camera. I'm just going to read through part of the About section on his website. Previously, he was a host, producer, and editor-at-large for Sci-Fi. He was a host for Robert Kirkman's Skybound Happy Hour and a pop culture expert for Sky TV's Best of Sci-Fi Movies program. He has been on The Today Show. He was host/co-executive producer on the Travel Channel's Paranormal Paparazzi and hosted a Being Human after show for Sci-Fi. I don't know if any of you have watched Being Human. It's a fantastic show. I'm going to stop, but I am not even close to halfway through this man's resume. Now, part of me is glad that I didn't know all of this before I sent a Facebook message, because if I did, I probably wouldn't have even bothered to send it and would have just given up on using the article. But I was an uneducated schmo and sent the message. Aaron Sagers responded to me within 2 hours of my message. And I truly believe it was him, not an assistant, definitely wasn't automated. It was this guy. He had no problem with me using the article, was super nice about it. And I had asked him if there were any projects he was working on that he would want me to reference. And he mentioned his new podcast, which I will also talk about in a moment. By that point, I knew who I was talking to, and I made sure to inform him that the number of people who might hear what I say about his podcast would be minimal. To which he replied that when I uploaded the episode, to make sure I tagged him, and he would resend it out through his social media campaigns. So I was speechless. You know, I told him that basically he wasn't going to get a significant amount of boost from me mentioning his stuff, and his response was to come back to me with a way that would boost my stuff. This guy has accomplished more in his career than I have even dared to attempt until now with my YouTube podcast voice acting dreams. And he was so nice and so supportive to a small beans dude from the Midwest who just wanted to start a paranormal podcast. Aaron, if you happen to listen to this, I'm really sorry that the whole first part of this was just a very brief biography of you. That was not my intention. But please know how much I appreciate you responding to me. It may seem like just whatever to you, but you absolutely made my week. Now, anyone who is listening to this, if you have not already, go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever you use to listen to podcasts and search Nightmerica. It's like America, but the A is replaced with the word night, N-I-G-H-T, Nightmerica. Do it now. Please come back later and finish this one, but Aaron's podcast takes priority here. I'll wait. I will still be here when you're done, because this is a recording and it's going to save your place and pick up right here where you left off. So go now, listen to it. It's amazing. There's interviews. It's paranormal and true crime. It's fantastic and so enjoyable to listen to. So check it out. I will be here. Good. Okay. So now we can continue and talk about Aaron's top 10 paranormal myths.
Myth number 1.
Paranormal facts exist. Now, we talked about this briefly at the end of the first episode of the Happy Nightmares podcast, where we posed the question, what does paranormal mean? Because the misconception here is that paranormal refers to things that are spooky and creepy and mysterious, etc., etc. The word is often believed to be synonymous with the occult or ghosts and things of that nature. However, the term paranormal is much more simple than that. Paranormal refers to anything for which there is no scientific explanation or facts to support. It could be a weather event. It could be anything that we wouldn't necessarily typically connect with the word paranormal. So by definition, if something is paranormal, then there are no supporting facts, only speculation or experiences that cannot be proven. As soon as something has hard scientific facts associated with it, is no longer paranormal. Therefore, paranormal facts cannot exist. Good? Moving on.
Myth number 2.
Ghosts only come out at night. Now, I tried to formulate my own thoughts about these myths before reading Aaron's explanations, and we were kind of on the same page with this one. I think a lot of the belief that ghosts only come out at night exists for a couple of reasons. Many, not all, but many of the stories of ghost encounters happen during the night. People wake up and see someone watching them, or a shadow in the corner, or they hear footsteps or whispers or something like that. There's also the belief in the 3 a.m. witching hour, which is when ghost activity is supposedly at its peak. But in truth, there is one key fact about nighttime that can't be ignored. You are laying down. It's quiet. You aren't watching TV or talking with your family or involved in work activities or housekeeping tasks or anything that would take your focus or distract you with noise. The earth doesn't go completely silent at night, but it quiets down a lot. And so any person is going to be more perceptive of out of the ordinary occurrences, because those things are more apt to snag your attention when they aren't competing with the hustle and bustle of daily life. Most likely, if you are experiencing a haunting in your home, these things are happening during the day too. But as we discussed in the first episode, where we asked if ghosts were real, the way that most spirits are able to communicate or make contact are subtle, because communication between our worlds is not natural. It's not supposed to be possible. Another reason why I think this belief that ghosts only come out at night exists is because we have been conditioned that way. If people have never experienced a ghost encounter themselves and have received their paranormal enlightenment from TV shows and movies, almost everything is in green night vision, taken in the middle of the night or the wee hours of the morning, so it is assumed that this is when evidence must be collected. Moral of the story, don't get all your facts from forms of entertainment. Not 100% reliable.
Myth number 3.
There is no physical evidence of Bigfoot. Now, I had to pause when I read this one, because if I go back to myth number 1, there are no paranormal facts. Aren't evidence and facts the same thing? How can there be evidence of Bigfoot when we just established that there are no paranormal facts, and I'm pretty sure Bigfoot is still considered paranormal? So I did a quick Google search because that's how I learn everything that I know, and found the following. Facts are chunks of reality. Things, properties, events, and processes. Evidence exists as data that is relevant regarding a given argument. So basically, evidence can exist without proving anything. Think about all those court shows like Law and Order. You hear about things like circumstantial evidence. It is evidence, but it's not enough to prove guilt. Just because there is evidence does not mean that it is conclusive evidence. With regards to physical evidence of Bigfoot, there are a lot of people who are starting to think that in one form or another, the likelihood that Bigfoot is real continues to increase simply based on the number of credible eyewitnesses across the world who present similar enough stories. But we aren't talking about eyewitness accounts. We are talking about physical evidence. The most common physical evidence comes in the form of tracks. Now, someone could create fake imprints in the ground. I learned this from watching Harry and the Hendersons way too many times as a child. But what makes some of these footprints credible is the existence of microscopic details of healed scars where the skin had been previously cut or damaged. Those details are so difficult to duplicate or manufacture that the likelihood of them being authentic goes way up when they have those kinds of details in them. Other forms of evidence include hair, blood, tissue, and even the gift that keeps on giving, poop. The existence of such evidence is not 100% conclusive, but to Aaron's point in the article, there are a growing number of scientists who believe in the existence of Sasquatch, such as Dr. Jane Goodall and Dr. Jeffrey Meldrum. These are credible scientific figures who don't support things like this lightly. They need evidence, and to them, the evidence is enough to at least point in that direction. If you're interested in Bigfoot, head out there and read about some of the evidence that exists. It's quite interesting. I'm starting to wonder, after researching, if maybe the time will come in the not-too-distant future when the big fella is no longer considered paranormal.
Myth number 4.
Only old buildings are haunted. There are a few things to tackle with this one. First of all, buildings are not the only things that can be haunted. If we look at the track record of hauntings throughout the years, people can be haunted, land can be haunted, objects can be haunted. If we just focus on buildings and structures, it is easy to assume that only older buildings are haunted because typically any abandoned or empty structure is going to be older. A new building probably has some form of inhabitant or stuff in it, meaning that it is difficult to determine if it is actually the structure that is haunted or if it is something in the structure that is haunted. Unless someone is able to find a brand new building that is haunted and also abandoned, maybe someone has, that would be the only way to prove that a new building can be haunted. Again, a lot of this is driven from the entertainment world because what people want to see is the ghost hunters in a super old abandoned asylum or jail or someplace where we know that a gruesome murder took place. We want to see that old place just like we want to see the night vision. Now, personally, and I don't base this belief on anything evidential or any research whatsoever, so take this with a grain of salt. I should probably spend some time to see if my thoughts on this have already been brought up by someone, because they probably have. I personally believe that ghosts/spirits gain strength and energy over time. A brand new ghost is going to be weak. It has just been removed from its physical body. It has to learn how to exist as a ghost. Something that takes a ton of energy, like communicating with the living, would be near impossible for them. But over time, those spirits will gain strength and gain energy, and their ability to reach out to us will also become stronger. So, the result of this is that by the time these ghosts are able to reach out to us in a way that we can perceive through one or more of our physical senses, the location that they are bound to, if ghosts are bound to a location, is now old. The ghost was still haunting it when it was newer, but we had no evidence of it, and thus the perception that only old buildings are haunted. Again, that's just my theory, based on nothing but my own noggin wheels turning. Interesting though, nonetheless, at least to me.
Myth number 5.
America's paranormal fascination is new. For this one, I am going to read Aaron's text because he did a fantastic job outlining the case, and I just can't do as good of a job as he did. Although the paranormal has become quite popular with the arrival of investigation-based reality shows, America's fascination dates back to the origins of the nation. The paranormal peaked in the U.S. in the mid-19th and early 20th centuries with the introduction of spiritualism, a religious philosophy that espoused that communication with the spirit world is positive. Mary Todd Lincoln, Mark Twain, and Harry Houdini were among the American celebrities who became part of the paranormal conversation, and the public gathered in homes and auditoriums to connect with the dead in seances. Beyond ghosts, future President Teddy Roosevelt wrote of a frontiersman's encounter with a Bigfoot-like creature in 1893, and other Sasquatch stories would periodically make their way into the news. Long before the Battle of Los Angeles in 1942, or the Roswell incident in 1947, airships were reported in the skies above America, and newspaperman S.E. Hayden wrote about the crash of such a ship in Aurora, Texas in 1897, about 6 years before the Wright brothers' first flight. So that's the end of Aaron's excerpt, but let's think about that for a second. Claims of airships before the first airplane even existed. When it comes to extraterrestrials, the idea is widely accepted that if they exist, they would be much more advanced than we are. And that lines up with the fact that they would not only have mastered flight, but mastered flight across the universe way before that was even a thought to us. Of this whole section, that was the most interesting thing to me. But with regards to this myth, America's fascination with the paranormal is not new. Humans in general have always been and will always be a little bit obsessed with the unknown, and it is that obsession that drives us forward, that drives progress, that drives people to research and study and test and experiment and learn new things.
Myth number 6.
Aliens are little green men in flying saucers. So I did a little digging to see if I could find at least an estimation of when the idea of aliens being little green men first popped onto the scene. And I found an article from 2016 that kind of dug into this a little bit that gives a couple of ideas. Definitely read this article, the Top 10 Paranormal Myths. Aaron outlines some additional things that I'm not going to bring up here, but good points that if you're interested in this, you'll definitely want to take a look at. So one reference is a 12th century English legend known as the Green Children of Woolpit. Another one says that in science fiction, the use of the phrase dates back to the 1940s, when there was a story called My Yaya's Little Green Men by Harold Lawler in a book called Weird Tales from 1946, which I am definitely going to need to check out. And then there was a science fiction novel entitled Martians Go Home by E.P. Dutton in 1955, which reinforced the idea of small green skin invaders. So I think, from what I can tell, someone just took liberties here and decided that this was how they would be described, and it took hold and became the standard for how people viewed aliens. To me, it's no different than people calling tissues Kleenex. Kleenex is a brand name, but not the only brand name. But the brand was so widely recognized that people just started using it as a term instead of a brand. And I think that the same thing happened in this case. But in most scientific circles regarding aliens, it is actually gray skin and big buggy black eyes that is believed to be the most likely appearance.
Myth number 7.
No one still believes in vampires. There are entire subcultures, as Aaron references in the article, who don't just believe in vampires, but believe that they are actually among a class of vampire themselves, most prevalent in New Orleans and New York City. Something as iconic as the vampire will always have a following. I find it hard to believe that there's anybody out there who thinks nobody believes in vampires anymore. Look at how quickly the world adopted Slender Man as something that might actually be real, and that is something that was recently created, not steeped in hundreds of years of folklore. We know who the person is that created Slender Man. We know the story behind how that legend came to existence, and still, there are people who will swear on their lives that Slender Man exists. That belief is only going to grow over time as we separate from the creation of the legend, and the same thing stands for vampires. As time goes on and the history of how vampires came to exist in legend becomes more and more muddied by the passing of years, people will keep on believing. And it's not even necessarily that they have evidence to support that belief. Humans as a species, have a natural tendency to want to believe in things that exist outside of what we see as real life on a day-to-day basis. Let's be real. Life can be boring. It's wake up and work and school, grind to learn and grow and progress and make money, and it just gets a little redundant. And this is especially true in today's world because that sense of wonder and the number of things that exist under the umbrella of the unknown has shrunk way down. My kids ask me a question and I don't know the answer. I look it up. I find the answer. I'm suddenly the smartest man alive. I don't always show them how to search it because I try to limit their exposure to technology in certain ways, and I want them to learn different ways to research outside of just plugging it into Google, even though that's my main form of education. But what used to get the wheels turning and spur a desire to learn is now satiated in a matter of seconds by an internet search. And so people crave the unknown. They crave the mysteries. That is why it seems like present day is the height of interest in the paranormal, because people want mystery. It is such a foreign idea nowadays, where people used to want to know everything. Now we just want to encounter a situation where we don't know. It's exciting. Those beliefs are never going to go away. And if the day comes where it is 100% proven that vampires don't exist in any way, shape, or form, we will just create something new.
Myth number 8.
Modern zombies are supernatural. Once again, I was forced into the world of online dictionaries because we have come across another term often believed as synonymous with paranormal. That is supernatural. So, whereas paranormal is the absence of scientific fact, something that is not proven, supernatural is attributed to some force beyond scientific understanding or the laws of nature. Not just that there's no fact, but that it's a fact that exists outside of science, meaning that there can't be any grounding in scientific fact, even in an unproven or fictional way. So how does this translate to zombies? Well, Aaron references a very specific turning point in zombie lore that I found quite fascinating, and I'm really glad he did, because I don't know how long it would have taken me to find this. Maybe not very long, but it seems like it would have taken a decent amount of research to get to this, to reach this point. So prior to 1968, the term zombie referred to, and I quote, seemingly soulless slaves created by Haitian voodoo magic. And this, if you look back at how zombies were portrayed once upon a time, it was the very slow, dragging, mindless creatures, right? So why 1968? 1968 is when George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead was released. And that is when the idea of zombies being created by an unexplainable virus or contagion, as Aaron says in the article, came to be the common explanation of zombie creation. Created by magic, supernatural. Created by a virus, based in science, no longer supernatural. Modern zombies are, quoting again, relentlessly aggressive, reanimated human corpses driven by a biological infection. Still fictional, but based in science. Supernatural and fictional are also not synonymous, thus the genre distinction between fantasy and science fiction when you are talking about the world of entertainment.
Myth number 9.
Skeptics and believers don't get along. All right, Aaron. Personally, I don't think that this is 100% a myth. I can guarantee that I could spend 5 minutes on Twitter and find a comment trail of hatred between a believer and a skeptic on any paranormal topic. However, in general, I think that people who are legitimately interested in the paranormal have a fairly open mind, and if they are truly looking for evidence, they want to make sure that the evidence they gather is accurate and is not disprovable. I don't know if that's a word. Now, as a believer, they will be a bit biased toward the evidence, and so the inclusion of a skeptic in the process makes for a more relevant study of any potential evidence and can lead to more credibility if a non-believer is not able to disprove it. The same goes for skeptics. If they are an open-minded skeptic, then they are open to the idea that they could be wrong, and so they would have no problem inviting potential evidence that exists to the contrary of their existing beliefs. So from the perspective of open-minded people, yes, I believe this is a myth, that they don't get along. However, if you have a skeptic who is unwilling to explore new possibilities, or a believer who simply does not want to be proven wrong, the tension and conflict is inevitable. So this one's kind of 50-50.
Myth number 10.
The paranormal is bad for business. I lovingly refer to one of my favorite movies of all time, Ghostbusters. What I'm referring to is the scene in the original Ghostbusters when they are called to the hotel because there is a ghost, and the hotel guy is super upset about it being bad for business, even though the damage that the Ghostbusters do catching the ghost ends up being way worse than what the ghost was doing. Watch the movie, guys. If you're young and you've not seen Ghostbusters, please just do it. Watch it. Get it done. It's too good to miss out on. Anyway, that was a really long-winded example, and a fictional one at that, of the paranormal being bad for business. In reality, the belief that no press is bad press is so true. Might the existence of paranormal phenomena drive a few people away? Sure, but it's going to bring in hordes of believers who want to experience it for themselves. Paranormal tours, overnight destinations, challenges, proof seekers. If business is down and you own a small bed and breakfast or something like that, get yourself a ghost. Get the word out. Don't fake stuff. Better that a visitor not experience anything than catch you faking paranormal activity. But get the word out. Business will pick up. Be ready, because people who love the paranormal can be, different than what maybe your current clientele is, but their money is green, just like everyone else's. So 100% a myth, a great one to end on by Mr. Aaron Sagers. The paranormal is bad for business. Wrong. Good for business. Paranormal is good for business. So that is it. Top 10 paranormal myths. If you want to read the whole article for yourself, just Google Top 10 Paranormal Myths. Click on the one from travelchannel.com. If by chance you finished listening to this podcast before going to check out Nightmerica from Aaron Sagers, thank you, but shame on you. Go now. Don't wait. Go check it out now. Also, check out Paranormal Caught on Camera on the Travel Channel. Follow Aaron on Twitter and Instagram at Aaron Sagers. Again, that's AARONSAGERS. He's also on Facebook. I know, because that's how we became best friends. If you didn't know, we have a YouTube channel called Happy Nightmares, where you can find spooky fiction, true stories of the paranormal, creepy music, even some behind-the-scenes discussions with authors of the fiction that we post on the channel. So head over to YouTube and check that out. Link is in the description of this episode. We also have a podcast archive channel on YouTube for these episodes. That channel is called Happy Nightmares Podcast. Enjoy the rest of your day, night, week, or weekend. Thank you so much for listening. I will talk at you in the next episode, so come back soon. And as always, happy nightmares.
This has been the Happy Nightmares podcast. Visit our YouTube channel, Happy Nightmares, for more of the creepy content you crave.